Hey, good afternoon to you. It's now 5:07 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Among the many important jobs that President Trump needs to fill, right near the top of the list is who will be the next FBI director to replace Christopher Wray when President Trump fires him or he resigns ahead of that. And this week, a lot of the conversation has revolved around two people, former Congressman Mike Rogers as well as Kash Patel, who you've heard on this program many times. We love Kash. And let's go to some CNN audio first. This is Andy McCabe, the disgraced former deputy FBI director, the guy who was fired for being a liar from the FBI. He, first and foremost, he endorsed Mike Rogers. He said he'd be great as FBI director.
I think Mike Rogers is a totally reasonable, logical selection for FBI director. If, in fact, that's the decision President-elect Trump makes. I had many interactions with then Representative Rogers during his time as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. So he's, as you mentioned, someone with history with the FBI. He understands the organization. He served as an FBI agent for several years before he went off on his political career. He, in his capacity in the House, I think that the strongest qualification in my own, on my own opinion about Mr. Rogers is the respect and awareness and knowledge that he has for the intelligence community, for the work they do, for the seriousness of that work, for how those secrets and that sensitive information needs to be protected. So on all those counts, I think Mike Rogers fills the bill pretty well.
So full-throated endorsement from Andy McCabe for Mike Rogers. What does he think of Kash Patel?
And he's been encouraged by a lot of people on the right to put Kash Patel in. What would a combination of that look like, do you think?
So in my estimation, Caitlin, no part of the FBI's mission is safe with Kash Patel in any position of leadership in the FBI, and certainly not in the deputy director's job. So you are enmeshed in every aspect of the FBI's work. If you enter into that position with nothing more than a desire to disrupt and destroy the organization, there is a lot of damage someone like Kash Patel could do in a position like deputy director at the FBI.
Wow, an even better endorsement from Andy McCabe for Kash Patel, at least for me. Let's bring in an expert on the subject. Kyle Seraphin is here. He's a former FBI agent, host of the Kyle Seraphin Podcast. Kyle, good to have you back with us, sir.
Hey, Vince, thanks for having me back on. Good to
well,
talk to you.
I think Andy McCabe really captured it for me. It makes me want Kash Patel desperately to be FBI director.
Yeah, from his mouth to God's ears, right? That sounds great. I think other people that Andy McCabe would really like is a John Brennan type, or maybe a James Clapper, people that are just totally enmeshed in the corruption. So,
yes,
pretty amazing. Listen, Andy McCabe is a petty person. He was not particularly well thought of, and he's not particularly well thought of by people that actually serve the FBI's mission, not the political purpose that it's gone to, but the real FBI folks that are out there that are decent people that are out there catching bad guys and sending me pictures of shotguns and saying, can you identify this? We're writing a search warrant for a fentanyl dealer. Those guys who are still my friends and still do the work in places that work needs to be done.
Yeah.
They don't want anything to do with an Andy McCabe choice. Andy McCabe worked into his settlement that the FBI had to give him the SES, the Senior Executive Service cufflinks that go along with resigning and retiring from the FBI. That's the kind of guy. He needs to have it on his cufflink so he can go and do his CNN and his MSNBC hits. So, I think it's a perfect endorsement. And Kash Patel, I'm a Kash-only guy. That's what I have to say about that. He's the right dude for the job because he scares the hell out of him.
One of the things that I heard Andy McCabe say in that audio about Mike Rogers, he was saying, oh, he was on the House Intel Committee, and he was basically a very kind of loyal guy to the FBI as it existed. And he also said that he'll be really good at keeping secrets from the American people. It sounds to me like Andy McCabe loves Mike Rogers because he's controlled.
Mike Rogers would be a status quo pick. Now, we saw the Trump transition folks come out and say that they haven't had any talks about him. From the people that are kind of the sources that I have orbiting around that area, it doesn't sound like he's a pick that they're really interested in. I hope Donald Trump knows better.
Well,
I suspect that he does.
Let me add some definition to what you just said. Dan Scavino came out with a tweet this morning that said definitively, he said, I just spoke to President Trump regarding Mike Rogers going to the FBI. It's not happening. In his own words, quote, I have never even given it a thought. Dan, once again, says not happening. So to offer people a sigh of relief here, Mike Rogers is not going to become the FBI director.
That's my instinct. Look, it looked from the outset, for those of us that keep an eye on kind of the wildness of social media, particularly the Twitter first and all that, it looked like people on X were floating out an opinion that may have originated at Fox. And it does seem like the status quo choice. That's why an Andy McCabe would get behind it. It would be the status quo move to put a guy who worked in the FBI from 1989 to 1994 and has about as much familiarity with the FBI as someone who works in the DMV in Dallas, Texas. It's just not a familiarity. It was 30 years ago. It's completely irrelevant. If you want to be relevant to the FBI and understand the problem, you have to be a post 9/11 FBI employee at the very minimum, or have familiarity with that sort of animal, and probably a post Obama era, which means Kash is a great example. He's worked in a bunch of different leadership things. If anyone Googles his name and sees what his bio looks like on the DOD's website, he's got all kinds of senior level experience. And he's a really good person. He's a really mellow, down to earth, and he's willing to be like wrong about things and learn, but he's also willing to just say honest and common sense things. And of course, he's written the book on government gangsters.
Well, he's battle tested is the key. And he worked, I mentioned the House Intel Committee and how unfortunately in the case of most congressmen who serve on it, they end up becoming captured by the Intel community rather than overseeing them. That wasn't the case for Kash's boss, Devin Nunes. Devin Nunes stood out as somebody who really was delivering scrutiny to the Intel community, and Kash Patel stood arm in arm with him and did that very thing. So that suggests that when the going gets tough, Kash Patel gets going. He's the right guy for this world.
Well, let me add a little bit of color to that too, because when my story went public and I first spoke to Dan Bongino, which was in September of 2022, we didn't have any idea what we were going to do next. My family was without a home; we had to sell it. And Kash picked up the phone and called me. I'd never spoken to him before. I didn't really know who he was other than I'm familiar with sort of the name. And he said, I want to help you, and I want to send you a check. I have a foundation that supports people that do the right thing, that are getting targeted by the government because I've gone through it. And I said, look, there's people that got to need it more than me. And he said, that may be, but I want to give it to you, and I want to help you out, and I want you to recommend people that I can help. And he helped out my friend Garrett O'Boyle, who people have seen testify in front of Congress. He helped out my friend Steve Friend. These are like no strings. Let me just send you some money because it's Christmas and you got to have, presents under the tree for your kids.
Yeah.
He worked with Marcus Allen. He reached out to people. And when I said, what can I do to help you? What do you need from me? And he said, nothing. And I said, do you want me to come on a podcast? Do you want me to talk? Do you want me to, give an interview? And he goes, no, we can do all those things too. This has nothing to do with that. You're just a guy who did the right thing. We want to support you. So he's got the Fight with Kash Foundation. They just literally go out and say, we want to help people who have been targeted by the government. And he's never once gone out there and bragged about it or told people that I'm aware of, hey, look at all the good things I do. That's the kind of person I want, somebody who actually understands kind of like American values, that we pick up people that did the right thing.
Well, to give you a sense of how right you are, that's the first time I've heard that story. So
of
this
course,
is
and I haven't told it to people because he told me not to tell people because it wasn't what it was about, and now he's in this running, and you see people all over the place. Like I said, social media is pretty big on it. It seems like there's enough big voices. Charlie Kirk just said it as well.
Yeah,
folks are out there recognizing he's just been the kind of guy that when you see him in a hotel lobby, which I did when I went to Turning Point's event in 2022, he bought me a Coors Light. He's not a fancy pants guy. He wears a T-shirt where he goes. This is the kind of thing that would be completely the opposite of a Chris Wray who flies everywhere in a $60 million jet and wants to be treated like royalty and has a big protective detail and flies to his multiple houses and, has a house in D.C. and has a house down in Georgia and this kind of thing. He's just a different kind of guy. He's gone to bat for the American people, whether they knew it or not. And I love him. He's just a great dude.
It's also telling that he came to you at a time where it wasn't like the coast was clear for everybody to be on your side. It's like it's.
I hadn't.
It's really telling.
Told me I was too hot.
Yeah, you can measure people in D.C. based on when they respond. Sometimes people wait for the water to be good before they dive in. And Kash is kind of like President Trump, actually, is one of these guys who will just say it early and stick to it because he truly believes in it. The consequences be damned.
I 100% agree with that. Like I said, there are people that have told me that you're too politically hot. The things you say are too aggressive. The plans that you're advocating for are too much. And the difference is when I said those things to Kash, he listened and said, okay, what's the pushback against that somebody might lobby? And I say, it would be this. And he said, how do you defend against that argument? And I said this. And he said, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
So he's a person that's listened to people that have been inside the Bureau recently. He comes from the outside, which would be very good. And, he's been loyal to sort of he's not even that political in my experience. He may say things that sound political, but they just sound reasonable if you go back 20 or 30 years. That's the way that people used to talk. It's really refreshing.
And and the reason it sounds political is because he's countering all of the political abuses that the left has meted out using these institutions. So when you speak up for it, it makes you sound like you're some like raving right winger. He's just arguing for normalcy. That's been the entire argument that I've heard and talked to Kash Patel about for years. So if he does arrive as the director of the FBI, and of course there's a lot of ifs here, President Trump may go with somebody else. What kind of change do you envision him affecting?
Well, Andy McCabe actually did say something important, which is that the deputy director is a really big, important thing. There are a couple of people that should be considered for that position, and I'll talk about them privately. They don't need to have their name dragged out. But those types of people that me and some of my buddies have sort of recommended, long-term FBI folks that understand deeply what is wrong and have fought against it internally and externally. I think most of the SES would look for ways out. They'd be looking for parachutes immediately. We're already being told that there's a sort of a plan in place to how to protect Chris Wray until he gets home so he doesn't have to catch a commercial flight, because I think he obviously sees the writing on the wall as well. So the security detail that works underneath the FBI director is making a contingency plan to pick up a new director and drop the old director off. So all of these things are going right now. The question is how much of the people that are in the, say, GS-15 all the way up to the top of the SES will want to stick around and see if they can survive. And if you do get a guy like Kash Patel, most of them will realize that their days are numbered. They're all going to be asked the right questions, which is that, are you loyal to the Constitution? And have you done the right thing? And hopefully you see somebody that actually can recommend some prosecutions. We know we got Pam Bondi in there right now. It'd be nice to see some of these folks who have done some real conspiracies against rights, which is what they charged Donald Trump with. I would like to see that turned around on some of the folks that have legitimately, multiple individuals got together and conspired against the rights of both the American people and some specific individuals. And let's see some consequences. I think that's what Americans are here for. A lot of these other things, it's very exciting to see, different picks that turn the left's head inside out. Yeah. At the end of the day, if you're going to correct the single biggest wrong, it is that we have a rogue Justice Department and we have an incredibly dangerous FBI that does have a few good deep, apples in it, and they've been doing the work the whole time. We got a lot of corrupt management that needs to be rooted out by culture, and that's going to start from the top.
Kyle Seraphin, lastly, and on a slightly different topic, but I mean the same department. This week we saw that Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, as well as FBI Director Chris Wray, refused to show up to their oversight hearing at the Senate Homeland Security Committee yesterday. That's making even the Democrats on that committee upset. Gary Peters, Democrat of Michigan senator, says it's a, quote, shocking departure from tradition. Why do you think, if you have a speculation on this, why would Chris Wray not show up for congressional testimony right now?
I think that what has gone on in the last 3 weeks in this country has been a sea change, and I'll be the first to admit that I didn't even know that we were going to have an election, and I'm glad to be wrong about it. I think that the popular mandate that's come down, whether or not the count continues on in places like Chicago, at the end of the day, something very definitive happened, and Americans said what they will and will not tolerate. And the people that have been doing things like thumbing their nose at oversight and at the American people's ability to learn what they're doing, those people are now suddenly on the defensive for the first time. I've got a lawsuit that's been going on against the FBI in the FOIA sphere, where we've tried to get a copy of a presentation that was done a year ago, November, that was the FBI Office of General Counsel making fun of Republicans in Congress for investigating them because they have out and out and outright been just lampooning the folks that were trying to do the constitutionally required job of oversight. And now what you're seeing is not only are they going to be, they're going to be thumbing their nose, they're actually starting to realize like there may be some real consequences and I don't need to be caught in the perjury trap. And there may be an appetite to actually come after us for the lies. There's no question in my mind that if they were not complete lies, they were half-truths that have been said for the last 4 years by these guys. And they're probably starting to try to figure out what their exit strategy looks like. That's my guess. And they need to spend all their time on that instead of sitting in front of the hill.
All right, Kyle Seraphin, former FBI agent, host of the Kyle Seraphin Podcast. Thank you, sir, as always. Good to talk to you today.
Thanks, Vince.
All right, be well. On line one, we find Mike in Sunshine. Mike, good afternoon, sir. You are on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, Mike. Mike. That's what they say on the Hump Day commercial. It's not Hump Day. I can't do that.
I'm here.
There he is. Hello, Mike. You're on the Vince Coglianese show.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Thanks for taking my call, Vince.
My pleasure.
I listen to a lot of testimony, on Capitol Hill testimony. And when Christopher Wray goes up there, it's maddening. He doesn't answer the questions. He says sources and uses, can't answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, ongoing investigation, can't answer that question. This administration and this Congress, this upcoming Congress, I think has to do something about that, whether it be in closed session or more information has to come out. Yes, you can't subvert an ongoing, investigation by making something public, but it's absolutely insane to hear every other question being responded to in that manner.
I know, and it's a very selective thing, too. Apparently, it's entirely at the discretion of the FBI director what stuff he feels like saying and what he doesn't. He's like, well, that's an ongoing investigation. But remember, after July 13th, after President Trump was shot in the head, he started speculating that, President Trump may not have been hit by a bullet. You remember that? That was Chris Wray.
Yep.
Who did that in front of Congress. So it's weird, this ongoing investigation standard and when it applies and when it doesn't. You're right. It should be more consistent. And I'm on the side of transparency. And I know you are too, Mike. Thank you.
Amen.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. It'd be better to know what our government is up to rather than all this deception, all the lies we've been served. Holy cow. Coming up, the left's attempts to slander all of Trump's nominees. It turns out at some point it crosses a threshold where it's like full-blown defamation, and your network could end up paying a lot of money if those lawsuits come through. One famous left-wing show is learning that lesson the hard way, and they're very bitterly reading out their legal disclaimers on the air. Those are ahead. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is now 5:35, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. I can't believe Thanksgiving is next week. How did that arrive so quickly? I can't believe the election is over. I can't believe the passage of time. It's moving. You see all these stories about how people are cutting off their family members who voted for Trump. You're not invited to Thanksgiving. I can't spend time with you. I can't look at you. I saw one story of a father. He'd been financially supporting his sons in college. He was helping them pay for college. They came home for dinner. And they said, they asked, who'd you vote for? And the boys said, well, we both voted for Trump. The father gets angry about it. What? It's like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm studying business, and Trump's a business guy, and I want to see business do well, so it makes sense. I'm voting for Trump. He's going to get things back on track. The father wants to teach them a lesson now. He calls it the F around find out lesson. So now he said, you're on your own completely. I'm not paying for anything. Watch, they're going to come out of this so much more conservative. They're going to literally take care of everything for themselves going forward. They're going to be like, wow, this is better. We'll see what happens. But isn't that nuts? I saw Elon Musk shared a woman's claim today. Her name's Tiffany. She said, the number of friends and family I've cut off for voting for Kamala Harris is 0, she wrote. Elon responded, same. Yeah, I'm not cutting anybody off who votes for Kamala. I've got family members who voted for Kamala. I've got a massive family. Some of them voted for Kamala. I love those people. There's not a chance I would cut them off. Why would I cut them off? I have a good baseline already with them. We love each other. Now I can encourage them to head towards the light or not make politics an issue at all. Maybe not be arguing about everything. If they want to bring it up, I'll make the case. I do it every day. I could do it in person. That's fine. But beyond that, I'd rather, share a nice drink, share a meal, have a good time, find out how their life is instead of being paralyzed by political anger. That doesn't strike me as real. Is this going on in your life at all? Are there people cutting you off because you openly say things like, yeah, I like Trump, I prefer him. Yeah, I voted for him. Is that real? 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. It just strikes me as sad. It's really sad. if you've come to some sort of conclusion that voting for Trump is the kind of thing that means you're excluded from the family. Because the way I was raised, the family is the most important thing. There are people who go down the wrong path. Families have black sheep. That's a real thing. There are people who make bad decisions. Loving families embrace those people. They don't reject them. And yet the left has spent so long preaching this kind of division and this anti-family attitude that families are almost inconvenient units of people, that they really shouldn't be involved in the fundamental caretaking of Americans. That should be left to the government. And that you should be compelled to give up your money for the government to be able to assist people. That family really gets in the way. The two-parent situation, that really gets in the way. Parents thinking they can raise their own children, that really gets in the way. And so there's something very recognizably Soviet about all of this, which is sowing division among families, turning family members against each other, suggesting that family members should be reported to the government or they should be shamed into compliance with whatever the Marxist agenda at the moment is. And so that manifests itself in this Thanksgiving stuff. It's like the idea that you would go home and be in for combat on political grounds. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that there are some families that fight like cats and dogs about everything, and that not every holiday is the kind of thing that we all look forward to. There's going to be families who don't. But just voting for Trump, which, let's be honest, is the better vote, the much better vote, that gets you excluded from Thanksgiving dinner? Holy cow. Holy cow. D is in Washington, D.C. on line 2 and has experienced some of this. D, good afternoon to you. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi. Yeah,
hey there, D.
It is a very real thing.
It's a real thing.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you great. You said It's a real thing.
Yes. Your spouse will cut you off. Your family will cut you off. They won't talk to you. They will think the worst things about you.
And when you describe this is from your experience, Dee.
Yes.
And it must be, I mean, first of all, it sounds so sad to have to endure all of that, but it must also be maddening because I assume your perspective is that you love these people and you don't feel it being returned.
Without going into too much, yes.
So what do you think can be done about all of this? Do you think there's a path out of it?
I do not know what the path is. I'm a very committed person.
Mm-hmm.
So I will always hope for the best. But at the same time, you don't know what to do to make somebody think that you're not a terrible person.
To see you as human. Yeah, one of the things we talk a lot about on the program, D, is the way that MSNBC, CNN, some of these other lefty outlets, the way they talk about Trump and his supporters, and certainly the way that the campaigns did. You know, so you had Biden referring to Trump supporters as garbage. You had the routine accusations of Trump supporters being Nazis, that Trump himself is like Hitler. What I've detected, D, and you can speak to this, is that kind of language has spilled over into some everyday leftists who consume all of this, and then they think that that's the truth, and then they turn against their own family members with such accusations. Is that your experience?
Yes, but there's also an element of, for lack of a better word for it, a very culty kind of. It's like the politics has become their religion, and they're not able to see anything beyond their political ideology.
Yes, I've noticed. Well, Dee, I'm really grateful that you called in with that. Thank you very much for telling us, and I'll lift up a prayer for you that you can navigate forward to a better future with your family again. But I'm really appreciative of you today. Thank you for calling in.
Take care. Thank you.
Take care to you. That's Dee calling from Washington, D.C. So that, an unfortunate situation there, but describing what we're seeing all over the place, which is this very, you're either with me or against me attitude that the left has taken towards even their own family members. Not all Democrats are like that. I know plenty of people who voted for Kamala, and I get along with them perfectly. It's not everybody, but I'd say it's probably too many people. Let's see here. John is calling in from Bristow now on line 5. Hey, John, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
I just love your show. I just wanted to weigh in on your recent remark about the two guys that came home from college and the dad decided to cut them off.
Yes.
Might be the best thing that ever happened to them. I came home from college and I actually managed to pull a 1.57 GPA in college. It was too much party and too little studying, and that was not going to get me into med school. So I had an agonizing reappraisal and decided to come home, and I presented myself on my doorstep of my parents. My mom answered the door and said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I quit." "No, you can't quit. Not my son, the doctor." I said, No, I got this. And I got a job on a railroad, and I was making stupid money. It was unbelievable. They were paying me just to be available in case they had somebody that didn't show up for work.
Wow.
They'd call me up and say, "We need you to work a shift. What would you like to do tonight?" "Oh, I think I'd like to do this." It was amazing. They paid me just to be there. And I managed to afford a late model sports car, my own yacht in Annapolis, and paid for college, wrote checks for college. It was unbelievable. So if they can untether themselves from daddy, it might be the best thing in the world that ever happened to these guys.
Yeah,
I encourage young people, do not bury yourself in debt to get some stupid degree.
Well, it turns out humans are actually pretty resilient from children on up. And if you're forced into a sink or swim situation, most of us choose swim in the end. But it does sometimes take life slapping you directly in the face in order for that to happen. And maybe you're right. That is my instinct. It's like as soon as they've already voted for Trump, so they're already primed to have the correct thinking on all of this. And the dad's like, "And I'm cutting you off." I think he just set them on a course to make the country even better than it already is.
Absolutely. They'll be independent. They'll be strong. They won't be dependent. Yeah, that'll make them even stronger. I think that's awesome. I would encourage all young people to just grab the reins, take control of your own life. You don't need to be a dependent like that.
Totally. And figure out, if you have kids, figure out how to give them opportunities for independence as early as you can. Obviously within reason, but have them test those muscles. It's worth developing them. John, thank you. I appreciate that call.
Thank you.
Let us see here. Greg is calling in from Lorton now, line 7. Hello, Greg. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, make sure you tell all the guys behind you, the sound guys, the techs, that we love them too, just as much as we love you.
Thank you very much. They just heard you, and they're all waving their gratitude. Thank you.
Cool. So I just wanted to say, and I'm not sure if I'm a little bit off topic. Maybe I missed a little bit of the conversation, but just to say, I have a sister, my dearly beloved sister, older sister, who is left, and she hates me now that Trump got elected. I mean, she sent me the most awful texts. I have two sons that are serving in the United States military, one in the Coast Guard, one in the Army. She berated their service and called them, stupid for serving for our country.
Oh my God.
And so there's no, unfortunately, the TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. Yes, it's absolutely real. And there's no cure. I'm sorry. There's no cure. Maybe there is for some people, but like people like my sister, and unfortunately, can you believe 71 million people voted for Kamala? Are we serious now? I know Trump, we won, and I'm so happy. It's like a weight lifted off my shoulders. But man, 71 million people still voted for this person. Unreal. So it just breaks my heart.
Is this the issue, Greg? Is this as bad as it's ever been with your sister? Is this the one issue?
Yes, it's been bad. whenever we talk politics before it, I normally would try to avoid it.
Yeah.
But, in the run, after everything that happened, I still tried to talk to her and tried to bring some sense into her head, and it just has enraged her to the point where she's off the rails, man.
Well, Trump was president already.
Sad.
Trump was president already. So what does she think is going to happen? If you could summarize it, or is it even coherent?
So basically, she thinks that there's going to be massive systemic racism and bigotry against people who play for the other team, so to speak, in a sexual way. She's really worried about that. She believes that Trump is all for big business. It isn't going to help the minority populations. And then, of course, there's the big old climate change. I mean, this girl goes down to the beach to protect the turtle eggs. That's like something she does, which is great. I love turtles. I
like the turtles.
But, the turtles are great. But, she just really, just I could go on and on.
She got the lefty starter pack, and she got every single booster after that, and she's all in.
She's out, and this is the other one. Democrats hate war. And I mean, I just was like, what? Biden just approved all these missiles to make the war even worse. It's just unreal, man.
It is unreal. Yeah, no, it's like if you were just relying on the available evidence to convince her, that should have happened a long time ago. Something else is going on here. Greg, thank you very much. I appreciate that call. All right, more in just a moment. More of your calls. If these calls keep going so great, you might not have to hear me play clips from The View, which may be a benefit to you. It's fine. The inaptly named Joy Reid had some thoughts this week about what you should do with your pro-Trump family members.
People are rightfully alarmed. They have a reason to be alarmed. And if you would vote for that, people may not feel so confident that they're safe with you. This is not crazy. This is legitimate feelings of fear of you.
Yeah, because safety is letting rapists pour into your country and just wreak havoc.
And a feeling that you might not be someone they could trust if this thing goes way south. Autocracies go south real fast, and things get ugly, and people get asked to do things and turn people in and point people out. And
she's describing her own party.
Turn on them. And if you're voting affirmatively, gleefully for this, people may not feel so confident in you anymore.
She's so clearly in a state of mental distress, and MSNBC keeps putting her on television, exploiting her.
That's real, and you kind of have to live with it. So if you think that you can vote for what people see as their destruction and then demand that they still are cool with you and kiki with you and have Thanksgiving with you, I think you're kind of missing the point of what people are upset about. They're afraid.
Speaking of Soviets, she's telling her own misled followers they need to separate from their pro-Trump family members.
And autocracy and fascism are things that are legitimate to be afraid of. So you may want to step back.
Yeah, if you're opposed to the merger of state and corporate power, you vote for Trump. That's the answer to that, and not the left, that produced Joy Reid. John is calling in from Leesburg here, line 9. Hello, John.
Hey, Vince. How's it going?
It's good, sir. Go ahead.
Real quick. Good, yeah. So lost a childhood friend of 50 years. He married a real left progressive. I had posted something post-2020 election that showed it was a video that showed the newspapering of the Atlanta voting and then the trunks being brought out from underneath.
Yeah.
And he texted me the next day and told me I needed to take that video down because it was upsetting his wife. And I said, what about First Amendment and my own thoughts? He said, doesn't matter. And with that, 50 years of friendship down the tube.
Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Thank you, John. That is the craziness that we're fighting against. I think we need to make America great again, don't you? And get people back to dinner together, pass the mashed potatoes. I'm not going to turn this into a political slugfest. Well, that's the America I love. The great one, Mark Levin, is up next here on WMAL.